This is Mike Proctor with Leading Edge Growth. I'm here today with Kevin Steckley with Syndio Outsourcing, and today we're going to talk about some of the challenges that face small and scaling businesses in the HR department. So Kevin, why don't you share with us what you do at Syndio?
Well, so we're an HR outsourcing provider. We focus on small to medium-sized businesses, and we really focus on providing the HR function with four key components: HR and compliance, benefits and benefits administration, workers' comp and safety and risk management, and then payroll administration. And our team is focused on initially the compliance and kind of the foundational aspects of the HR function, and then once we kind of have that all in order, then we can work on more of the strategic and kind of development side of the HR function for the business.
Awesome. And I know you can share a whole lot more about that, but for today, that's perfect.
Perfect.
All right. Why don't you share with me a little bit about some of the struggles you see in that 20 to 100 employee company that you deal with?
Okay. Really, most commonly with a small business like that, depending on whether they've been in business for 6 months or 16 years, at that size, they're kind of at the point where they need help in the HR function. They need that support, and it's HR is not a revenue generating piece of the business, but it's still something you have to do. At that size, it's very expensive to get an HR professional as well as the systems and get everything in place. So it's generally pretty cost effective to outsource that business function. I think it's usually, and you're kind of a good example of that, it's a good idea to outsource the non-core pieces of your business.
Could you speak to what's a major risk to a company of that size by directly employing an HR professional in-house?
So when a small business hires an HR person, pretty commonly they're going to, depending on their budget, they can spend a whole bunch of money and get a high-level person, or they can spend less and get somebody who's more, kind of less tenured in the HR field. And either way, they're gonna still have to support that person with, they're still gonna have payroll software probably. They're gonna have a data system of some type. They're gonna have a time and attendance system. They're gonna have lots of parts and pieces. So they're gonna have a lot of things kind of spreading their focus. And on top of that, when you hire an HR person as a small business, a lot of times that person's already kind of at their upper limit as far as career trajectory in that business. So what I frequently see is an HR person will come in, they'll come into a 30, 50, 70 employee group, they'll build their resume for a couple years, and then they'll go out and they'll look for a job at a larger organization where they can make more money. So there's not as much stability, and ultimately it's generally more expensive to have an in-house HR person for a small and medium-sized company.
Gotcha. Yeah. So there's risk of that employee building their resume and leaving. Mm-hmm. And then the HR hat's back on the owner or the management team who's not really trained for it again until they can get the next one. And on top of that, it's not necessarily one person is rarely the right fit for a growing company, because they're either going to be too much or not enough.
They're not going to have all the skill sets.
Yeah.
So it's flexibility. So one of the things about engaging with an HR outsourcing provider is Syndio has roughly 50 employees in-house, and almost all of those are operations people. So you've got a wealth of experience. You've got 15 HR professionals that have 5 to 15 years of experience, and they can lean on each other if a unique issue comes up. But because we do HR day in and day out, we've seen most of the scenarios that any small business is going to run into, and we can react a lot more quickly with an appropriate solution that's going to handle the issue. Same thing with the accounting side and the risk management side. There's a lot of experience that can be drawn on to get that business owner focused back on the revenue generating side and get the employees handled appropriately.
Right. Another scenario I see play out here and there is with a smaller company, it's one thing to have a core group of believers of, say, the first 5 or 6 employees that are really bought in. But then once you get beyond the 10, 15 employee mark where that span of a relationship is spread a little more thin, what are the risks you see come into play when the ownership or really family management is still playing that HR role? Where can that go sideways?
That's a pretty common situation. So you've got that initial group of people and they work well together, and then you start adding to it and they're maybe not as bought in to the core concept of the business. They're there for a job. And there can be, somewhat of a cultural divide at that point. And trying to maintain that culture is going to be challenging to do, but vital to the success for growth. But a lot of times it's really nice to have an impartial third party that can come in, objectively look at a situation, and sometimes be the bad guy, and say, okay, John Smith, this is not acceptable, this is the corrective action that we need to follow, and this is the resolution. That can be a lot more difficult, especially, what if it's two relatives? They're not going to be quite as capable of addressing an issue head on as a third party is going to be able to come in and kind of try and help mediate and resolve those issues.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it could get messy around Thanksgiving. So.
And it does, frequently. Yep.
Very good.
And then going kind of back to scalability, when you've got 20 or 50 or 75 employees, you're really only realistically going to be able to have one HR person, budget-wise, in that size range. So just because you're growing and you're increasing your needs, that doesn't automatically mean that they are going to be scalable within their skill set to handle your growing needs. Whereas with an outsourced provider, you can draw on the expertise of an entire team and an entire company. So you're not going to have to worry about somebody being with you for 2 years and then moving on to another organization. You're not going to have to worry about, is our system strong enough to support this growth? The real benefit of an HR or any outsourced provider is they've got the resources to grow and scale up and down. Mm-hmm. If you've got 30 employees and for whatever reason there's a pandemic and
let's just say for a second,
just a wild card out there, and you have to scale back a little bit. If you've got an HR provider, you can scale back and still have the same resources available to your team and not have to worry about terminating an employee and then paying unemployment claims and benefits and all the costs that go along with having somebody in-house.
Let alone, probably one of the scariest things you could do is lay off your HR manager.
They know the law, so if you do so, and they probably know what you have and haven't been doing correctly.
Exactly.
So that can be a sticky situation for certain.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for sharing with us some of your thoughts, experience, and the benefits of using a company like Syndio to outsource HR functions.
My pleasure. Thank you, Mike.